What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. This is Unleash, the panel discussion show. And, of course, got a fantastic panel to join me. I'm your host, Ant Walker. Now, let's move on and introduce the three gentlemen that will be accompanying me this evening to talk about mixed martial arts. So, first up, we're going to introduce the guest chair. That chair is occupied by Combat Press's latest virtuoso, the man known as Juice Vargas. Juice, what's going on?
What's going on, Ant? Ben, Jay, everyone on the panel. Thanks for having me on. Been a long time fan of Sure Dog. I've had Ben and Ant on my show, but it's awesome to actually be, with some of you guys on here.
Definitely, man. Always a pleasure to speak with you, my man. So, of course, we have the senior editor of SureDog.com, the jack of all trades, who's mastered them all, Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on?
Hey, I'm just excited to be here with y'all and take my brief breath before we dive into one of the most crowded weekends of the entire year for mixed martial arts.
Yeah, don't make any other plans if you like to see people get punched in the face for money. Now, we're going to introduce the anchor of the chair, the man who's got all the stats, all the math. He is also of SureDog.com. Good friend, Jay Petrie. Jay, what's going on?
Hey, Ant. Hey, fellas. Glad to have you on the show, Juice. All right, let me give you my stat of the week. 57,000, this is one y'all know, 57,127, which is the reported attendance at UFC 243, which beats the record from Ronda Rousey Holly Holm by about a couple hundred to 1,000, depending on how you count the chairs. This is now number 3 in the all-time attendance list in the history of MMA. KSW 39 in the Warsaw National Stadium hit 57,766, so about 600 and change more. And Pride Shockwave 2002, which had anywhere from 71 to 91,000, depending on who the heck counted everybody in there, at the Tokyo National Stadium. So UFC's coming, but I don't know if they're going to pass this number.
Oh man, 70 to 90,000. That's a hell of a number. 55,000 or 57,000, excuse me. Just doesn't even seem close to that. But let's move on because we do have a lot to discuss. And UFC 243 just wrapped about 48 hours ago as of us recording this show. So swing or miss, fellas. And this was open for the entire panel here. Israel Adesanya is the next UFC superstar.
Swing. I think he is. I mean, there's two different tiers of superstar. There's the kind of superstar that gets the already engaged MMA fan base charged up and can drive, live gates and pay-per-view numbers that way. And then there is that elusive crossover type star that engages the mainstream media, the ones that, they're leading up to a fight, they're doing appearances on local TV, on national cable. Adesanya is already on the first level. To people who care about the sport and follow it week in and week out, whether they like the guy or not, whether they think he has a shtick or whatever, they are engaged. I mean, he's one of the 5 or 6 biggest names in the sport right now. As far as the other level goes, I mean, I have the feeling he's a bigger star in Australia and New Zealand than he is in North America. But even so, he is exactly the type who, if anybody could make that jump. He has an exciting fight style. It would be very easy for, one of your morning variety shows to put together a 15-second sizzle reel of this guy that, would get people not to change the channel. And then he has a very engaging personality. Again, whether you think it's overdone, whether you think it's phony or whatever, he's a charismatic guy. So, yeah, swing. He's the next UFC superstar.
All right, Juice, man, what do you think? Swing or miss? Is he the next big star in the sport?
Yeah, I'll swing. I'm kind of just going off of what Duffy said. I basically agree with him, about the tier thing. Yeah, I wouldn't say superstar like Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey level. I think that's what most people think when they hear superstar. But, yeah, he can definitely be in that Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal, Anderson Silva mold. I think people think that people forget that Anderson Silva was never really that big a star. He had a few big pay-per-views with, Sonnen and Weidman, but he was never like this gigantic star. I think he can get to that level, and especially that he fought Anderson, and I don't want to say they have similar fight styles because they don't, but to the casual fan, they will say they're both like flashy strikers, similar body type, and yeah, like as Ben said, he's charismatic. Obviously, Anderson was well, they're both foreigners, but Anderson was iffy on the English at times, and Izzy speaks basically perfect English, and he even throws in some weird, you know, Aussie words, Kiwi words, and then even I don't know what language he speaks, the Nigerian language, whatever but he'll even throw those in there. So he's a very charismatic guy, and he definitely understands people of different cultures. I've been a fan of his for basically from the jump as when he came in the UFC, and yeah, I think he can definitely. I don't know if I could say sell pay-per-views because we don't know numbers anymore, but conventional wisdom would say that yeah, he'd if we're still talking old numbers, he's probably start doing over 500,000 buys, like Jon Jones level type numbers. I think actually him and Jon Jones is a good comparison too, as far as like star power.
All right, so if I'm safe in the assumption that you're saying Izzy is going to be a star in terms of the MMA bubble, but not much outside of that. Is that correct?
For the most part, I think there's gonna be some fights where he could be big. If Paulo Costa is next, that fight could be big, especially if they start talking mad shit. If there's some other rivals in there, I mean, if I'm sure he'll fight Whittaker again. I don't know if that's gonna be selling big numbers, but it's like Jon Jones. Jon Jones doesn't sell big numbers every time, but if there's a DC, a Chael Sonnen, a Gustafsson, some certain guys that can give him a match that people think that he can have a challenge here, they'll definitely buy, they'll tune in.
All right, so I do want to touch on his future matchups in a moment, but I want to stick with this topic of his star power right now. So Jay, I'm gonna kick it to you now. I am of the mind that Israel Adesanya is the possible crossover star. He has a way of touching a lot of different subcultures in addition to mixed martial arts. He's highly influenced by hip hop culture. He's highly influenced by comic book culture, highly influenced by anime culture, and he kind of creates this hybrid of all sorts of nerdum and weirdo culture together, and it forms this pretty charismatic package. So Jay, do you think that Israel Adesanya is going to be Conor McGregor like in his stardom?
Oh, give me that Babe Ruth point at the bleachers thing, because I'm telling you, I think he can be the guy. I really do. I think he can be the next Israel Adesanya. And why do I say that? I'm so bored with people saying the next Conor, the next Ronda, the next blah blah blah. I mean, let him be him. He doesn't need to emulate the path. I'm not saying y'all are, but I'm saying generally speaking, people go, oh, he could be the next Conor because he's going to do that kind of thing. He's got all the pieces that you need. He has everything you could possibly ask for in different areas to put together to be a star. Got the personality, he's got the confidence, he's got a nation behind him. I mean, you heard them. The audience of 57,000 people booed him loudly because he was fighting against their hometown guy. And when he smoked Whittaker and he was announced the winner, they cheered him. They did not mess around. They're very polite, and you can compare it to recent crowds and stuff. But most importantly, he's got the skills to back it up. Holy smokes. I've been following him since he was in Glory Kickboxing when he won the middleweight tournament, and then he lost the title fight to Jason Wellness. But, you could see there, okay, maybe this guy could be something. He's laying on the ropes, having a good time. People may have been upset at his walkout and whatever, but he's a showman. Let him show. The UFC has been just killing themselves for years trying to make him generic and create a fighter, the next whatever. They're going to have the same shorts, the same strategy, the same marketing, the same approach. Israel Adesanya can break from that mold if they let him. The best approach they have is to do nothing. Just let him be. He can sell it. He can sell an angle. He can sell the rematches of look at these great fights I've had. He can sell the look at this what do they call him? An overinflated balloon animal or something like that.
To Costa. Waving inflatable tube.
Yeah. I mean, he can do it if they let him. And I feel like that's the thing that could hold him back is the UFC, as strange as that may sound. But there's something else I kind of want to, I don't want to feel guilty broaching the subject, but I've been paying very close attention to the feedback and the response to Adesanya. And I don't know how best to say it, but is there a racial angle? Do you think that some people are mad at Israel Adesanya because of the color of his skin? Do you think if Chael Sonnen had got up there and danced the jig like that, would they have reacted so negatively? You know,
as the panel's resident black man, I'll go ahead and jump on that grenade. I absolutely think that there is a racial undertone to a lot of the criticism that he's received about his showmanship. Now, one thing that we tend to forget, and I know I think all of us, probably with the exception of you, Juice, on this panel, are guilty of this at some point in time, and forgetting that this isn't just a sport; it's sports entertainment. Now, a lot of times that entertainment factor seems to be conveniently forgotten more so often when there's an athlete of color. And I think this is something that kind of crosses the lines of all different sports. There's this really strange expectation that black athletes are supposed to be humble, and they're supposed to be quiet, and they're supposed to shut up and dribble, and they're supposed to just take the field and not have any sort of personality outside of the sport itself. Damn that. Like, that's just not how reality works. So I don't know. I do find it interesting too, because I get that Israel Adesanya is a cocky guy. He is a guy who exudes confidence, and he has a definitive swagger about him at all times. And that rubs some people the wrong way. But at the same time, they were giving Rashad Evans shit. And Rashad Evans isn't, and like, granted, he taunted a little bit here and there, but Rashad Evans is not that sort of guy. You know, he is not an Israel Adesanya. They were giving Tyron Woodley shit. And Tyron Woodley is about as straight-laced as you can get. So what thing do these three gentlemen have in common?
The blackitude. Hey. I'm trying to think of something clever, but no, really.
I mean, may I throw kind of a hypothesis out there?
Absolutely.
I mean, you did it. I mean, you do well to bring up the examples of Evans and Woodley. And the thing is, those, I mean, actually, let me jump completely away from that one. I think as much criticism as Adesanya gets, he would get more if he were American. If he was an American guy that looked the same, fought the same, name was Tyrone Lewis, he would get even more shit. Because being Nigerian by way of New Zealand, he has a different accent, a different vocabulary. There's something other about him to middle white America that is other in maybe a cuter and less threatening way, even though he obviously still gets up some people's ire. But it would be even worse if he were an African American.
Oh, wholeheartedly agree with that.
So, mind if I jump in real quick, Ant?
Of course.
And this is kind of a question to you, Ant, and to Ben. So I actually sent a tweet of mine to Ant that I kind of had a similar discussion last week about Kevin Lee. And I am not surprised that people hate on Kevin Lee, because he is a brash African-American who, yeah, he talks shit, but he's also real smart, and I think people just don't want to give him the credit. And historically, I feel athletes like that haven't, gotten the credit they deserve. But to what Ben was saying, do you think if Adesanya talked and said shit like Kevin Lee does, that he would be, is that what you're saying? Like, if he had more of that Kevin Lee vibe? And then to you, Ant, too, do you think that if he was more of that style, that he may even receive more hatred, especially since you're American and, obviously you get it from a different perspective?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement right there, because Israel Adesanya does have, like, the idea that he's, and I hate getting into some of these battles, but at the same time I love getting into some of these battles because, fuck everybody else. But like I think I like the word likable keeps coming up, and he's not likable. He's not likable. Define likable. if who is likable, because if from all I can see, granted, I don't know Israel Adesanya personally, but I'm pretty sure that 99.9% of the people on Twitter, on Facebook, or wherever else that are spewing their venom about how he's not likable have not had nearly as many interactions with him as I have. And granted, I haven't had but maybe one or two. So let's put that out there. They can't really come up with any reason that he's not likable. I mean, by my assessment of him, by what he's presented to the public, he's a guy who, tells a lot of jokes, has obvious charisma. He commands the energy in a room in a very positive manner. You don't hear him. He'll trash talk a little bit, but you don't really hear like a venom to the things that he says. It's nowhere near the level of venom that a Conor McGregor or a Chael Sonnen could throw toward their opponents. It's a more of a lighthearted thing. So it's kind of like where is he not likable? And typically that blanket not likable thing seems to be dumped on athletes of color and women. And that tends to be the trend. And of course, there are going to be plenty of outliers. There's going to be your McGregors. There's going to be your Colby Covingtons. There's going to be your Michael Bispings that kind of push that line. But it takes a lot more of their bad behavior to get the same criticism that than an athlete of color endures. To classify Israel Adesanya as not likable in the same sentence as Conor McGregor sounds pretty nuts to me. One of them is a felon.
And it ain't the black guy.
and it's not the brother. All right. To label to say that you think Rashad Evans wasn't humble enough, and then maybe you lob some of that same criticism at Michael Bisping. Well, Bisping did kind of spit on his opponent's corner after illegally kneeing his opponent in the head. So and Rashad Evans simply existed and maybe taunted Chuck Liddell.
He danced that one time.
Yeah, that one time he moved his hips in a rhythmic fashion. And you know what? We don't like rhythm around here.
Right after knocking out a rapist.
Yeah.
So he knocks out Mike Whitehead, fucking convicted rapist, does a little dance, and he's the bad guy.
Yep.
That welcome to America.
Yeah. So
that's how it is.
Yeah, so that really is the thing that it's just the elephant in the room. It's something that I simply just can't stand by and pretend like isn't happening. And I'm really amazed at the amount of people on in the MMA bubble that seem to refuse to believe that race is ever an issue, it's ever a problem. Yet their venom is always directed at the brothers or the ones who are displaying what they would stereotype as brother-like behavior. So let's keep that in mind. Keep that same energy with everybody who's spitting on corners and throwing dollies at buses.
Throwing buses at dollies.
Yeah, whatever, man. A lot of horse meat being eaten nowadays. People probably can't pick up buses at this point. All right, fellas. Anything else you guys want to add to that before we continue down the 243 train?
One last thing, an observation that kind of to follow up on this train that I wasn't surprised about because I don't want to cast any light either way on him. Luke Thomas had a very interesting reaction. He said something along the lines of he was just judging here and there's Conor McGregor, and he says some line that Conor McGregor where he's trashing on the fans, suck my whatever, something like that, and the fans flip out and go yay, and Israel Adesanya dances. He has a choreographed dance for them, and they're boo this guy, boo whatever. When he does something interesting and entertaining and whatever, it's the duality, it's the why it's the likable thing, and I have surveyed the Sherdog forums the past several days, and there's that likability question. I believe that you guys both addressed this question last week about Robert Whittaker. Is Robert Whittaker likable? Do we like Robert Whittaker? And that similar question came up on the Sherdog forums, and it was it was kind of the people were like, oh yeah, he's an entertainer, he's interesting. I can't quite put my finger on it though, and it's just like, oh my god, guys, seriously, is this where we are? Is this the conversation you're having without actually having. What's the takeaway? How do you get through that? And it's really, that's why I brought it up in the first place, because it's so strange to me that they can have that effect. As I mentioned, Adesanya has everything that you could possibly ask for. He's nerdy, he's interesting, he's incredibly talented, he's this and that and the other thing, and yet people can still go, well, I don't know. And, you know, he kind of has, it's going to sound weird to say, but he almost has that as a small advantage, because now he has people that want to watch him get knocked out for no reason other than they have that little thing in their head say, oh, I'd sure love to see that guy get his block knocked off, for no, verbal reason, for a visceral reason that they feel that. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that one out there.
That's a good point. I did see a similar take on Twitter to what you were saying, where, and I forgive me for not remembering who sent this one out, but in essence, maybe it was something off of what Luke Thomas said. It probably was, but it was saying like, you don't have to like he knows you don't have to like him, you don't have to love him, but you care. And that's pretty much it. If you care, you will spend money, as Floyd Mayweather, what it's like getting those villain dollars. Those villain dollars are beautiful. Joker's the #1 movie in the country. Okay. Villains get paid. So
villains
villain
are so
away
hot right now.
It's so in style. And so I was just about to say something really intelligent and I forgot it. So we're probably just gonna have to move
Sorry
on.
About that.
It's all right. It's all right, because
I was gonna add one tiny little thing to another. You were talking about Mayweather. I was actually gonna talk about that I sometimes feel in this modern day and age, I know it's been historic, but I think anything from like 2007 onwards in the past 15 years or so, that black athletes, black prize fighters have been kind of at a disadvantage because of Mayweather, because you see a brash, confident, flashy black dude, and you just, I don't know, I think for a lot of maybe Americans, they just get that image of Mayweather. It's just, he's too much, they just get images of that type of stuff. So I kind of think it's things like that and people like that kind of, I want to say have fucked it up for other black athletes, but I think just a lot of America might have that image of just like, he just reminds me too much of somebody. I can't put my finger on him, but it's probably Mayweather just because he's confident.
It's someone darker skinned. Not feeling it.
Even that is a double standard. Conor McGregor doesn't get to ruin white people for anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that is true. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I think that may be the case with Middle America. What have you, whatever you want to say about the people that may have an issue with them.
But not even necessarily Middle America, just America. Period. We can look back to Jack Johnson, his reign as champion, and how he was this flamboyantly outspoken, especially given the time. And on top of that, like to the point where he would win a fight and there would be a spike in lynchings because some folks just couldn't handle seeing a black man running things. They couldn't handle to see a black man win, and make money and enjoy his life. And then that same train carries on to how Joe Louis carried himself throughout his career, where he tried to be the antithesis to that. And then Muhammad Ali, who, while we revere Muhammad Ali now, Muhammad Ali is next to a deity to most people in this country, probably around the world. But at the time of his height, he was hated. He was despised. He was Colin Kaepernick. So like this is a continuing train. So mixed martial arts has only just picked up the ball left on the floor that boxing has left behind. And quite honestly, I mean, Mayweather being a perfect example. It's a ball that's still being carried through boxing, through MMA, through pretty much anything involving a man of color, in some sort of sporting setting. Right there, where he is on the field or in the ring or in the court, that seems to be the standard that keeps coming up. So, I'm really floored by, I'm just as surprised as I'm not. It's probably the best way to put it. And another thing too, I wanted to address while we're on this topic, And I promised everyone watching we will get off this topic and move on to happier things momentarily. But, fuck it. It's my channel. I wanted to address another thing, too. Ben Askren had a tweet where he was speaking to Israel Adesanya's star power. And he says that he is something to the effect of how talented he is. He's charismatic. And I think the final thing was, and he speaks well. Now, that definitely triggered some people.
Yeah.
And I understand completely, because as a black man who enjoys the benefits of a fairly decent level of education and vocabulary, I don't speak solely in rap slang all day long. I know how to communicate myself other than saying, yo, homie, what up? So I get told all the time, oh, he's well-spoken, articulate. It really irritates the shit out of me, because it's one of those underhanded, condescending things. But I'll give Ben Askren the benefit of the doubt for his tweet. I don't think that's the context he meant. Now, if we were to unearth, tweets of Ben Askren saying a bunch of racist stuff, or he steps into the cage against Damian Maia with a brand new swastika tattoo, all right, yeah, I'll walk back this statement, and then we'll trash him too. But I think this was simply in the context of MMA fighters for the most part don't speak well. Like, the sport isn't exactly filled to the brim with people who are good at communicating. So
what I'm hoping from that takeaway is that Askren was more trying to approach it from the we can sell this fight. You can market that fight. That I hope and pray that was the angle he was more pursuing, that this guy can handle himself on the spot, that he can roll with the punches and say something clever, or pull out a reference and drop something. Because I mean, I think I'm an attorney. How many times have I been told, well, you're well spoken? Yeah, so exactly. Yeah, it isn't a compliment, and I pride myself on having a mediocre vocabulary, but the point still stands. It's a different approach that I don't know. It hits a funny, it hits that point in your head and you go, that doesn't feel right, but you just hope that they're approaching it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to trash Ben Askren on this, because I think even a lot of times when people do say it as condescending as it is, in a lot of ways, a lot of times the people saying it don't realize that it's that condescending. I think that's pretty standard thing that sucks to hear, but people don't mean to suck when they say it necessarily. But to everyone who is spewing their own version of venom at anyone who is upset by that remark, please, I ask you all kindly to kiss my ass. I ask you all kindly, if that is too much for you to handle, please suck my dick. If that is too much for you to handle, please jump off of a bridge. All right. It's called empathy. It's called trying to understand other people's perspectives. Fuck off if you don't like it. All right. There we go. I'm now stepping off my soapbox. And let's start talking about what's next for Israel Adesanya. So I'll start with you on this one, Juice. Do you want to see him fight Paulo Costa or Jon Jones next?
Oh God, I was not a fan of him I understand he's selling fights, even if the Jon Jones fight will never happen, or definitely not in the immediate future. To me, I don't want to see it. Definitely not right now. Maybe that'll change down the line. If he starts getting 5, 6, 7 title defenses, then yeah, let's talk. We had this thing back in, it was the thing with GSP and Anderson back in the day, and then it kind of morphed into Anderson versus Jon Jones, and we never saw it because they were friends and all this stuff. Obviously, Jon Jones and Adesanya do not like each other, but Adesanya really seems to not like Borrachina either. So yeah, I think that makes all the sense in the world. He gave him the DX cross chops after the fight. I mean, if that doesn't sell a fight, I don't know what does. weirdly enough, taking a page out of Jon Jones after the DC fight and all that, but no, that's as we said, he's kind of a nerd too. He probably likes WWE and shit too. But I think Costa makes all the sense in the world. I do gotta give. I don't know if I kind of want to slap him over the head or just give him a hug and just out of respect to Whittaker. They said right after the fight, like, oh, I'll see him in 1 or 2 fights. Like even he wasn't talking about an immediate rematch, and I don't know if he deserved it or not. But it is kind of cool to see a fighter nowadays not call for a rematch right away, because that's just what it is now. I mean, it's always been a thing, but a guy has more than 1 or 2 defenses now, and Whittaker was a very good champion, but when you look at it, he only defended his belt. He beat Romero, and then he defended against Romero, and that was it. So maybe he was looking at it from the outside in, but I think Borrachino's the next fight. He's been talking since even before he beat Romero, and so has Izzy, and he was there for a reason, and Izzy was fully aware, and I've got to be honest, I wasn't so sure that they weren't going to fight then and there. I mean, I was there for 241 when Colby Covington and all that shit happened, and that wasn't really a personal thing with, one-on-one thing, a one-on-one problem, but seeing how it was on TV, I was like, yeah, they might go at it right now. This is the fight to make. They really, really don't like each other. And then just the contrast, like Izzy was talking about it too. Like, he's just gigantic, gorilla-looking dude. Like, of course they think that he's gonna beat me up. Look how big he is. Look how strong he is. And then you look at Izzy, just skinny and lanky, and looks like he doesn't have much muscle, but we all know he can fuck you up.
Very, very good point there. Ben, is Jones or Borrachino your preferred matchup?
I don't want to see Israel Adesanya fight Jon Jones ever, at least in the foreseeable future, unless something were to really, really change. I mean, we're talking in Adesanya about someone who's fought in the UFC 7 times now, yep. And he has come in at 185, 184, 183. These are the weigh-ins of somebody who is fighting at his walking weight. Meanwhile, Jon Jones walks around literally almost 50 pounds heavier than that. If they fought, Jon Jones would completely destroy him, and it would tarnish Adesanya for no good reason. There are weight classes for a reason. So I don't want to see that at all. There is a wealth of deserving up-and-coming contenders and challengers at 185. There's a hell of a backlog because Whittaker fought twice in 27 months against the same dude. So people have been lining the hell up. Even though, I mean, Anderson Silva lost to Chris Weidman, and the first 5 guys to wear the middleweight belt after that, George St. Pierre is gone, according to him, for health reasons. Michael Bisping is gone absolutely for health reasons, which I believe we're going to touch on later. Rockhold and Weidman have both moved up to light heavyweight. So the entire old guard kind of cleared out, and there's a whole new guard coming up. I would much rather see like Borrachino or Jared Cannonier or one of these new guys get their cuts at Adesanya. I would love to see Gastelum get another shot. I would love to see Robert Whittaker win a fight or two, kind of go back to the drawing board and figure out what went wrong and take his shot again. I do not want to see Israel Adesanya fight Jon Jones until he defends the middleweight title at least 4 times.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with that. The Jon Jones talk is just so premature. Not only the physical dimensions of both guys are just in a completely different stratosphere. Jon Jones is like a monster of a human being. He is bricked up like there's no tomorrow. And he's a guy who's been talking about, although this talk has been going on for years, going up to heavyweight, and you want a small middleweight to go up and fight him, and not even like the Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos type where they're too big for middleweight. Like, this is a guy who barely makes his own weight class because he's so small. I find that ridiculous. But Jay, what's the appeal of Israel Adesanya and Jon Jones fight for that casual fan who's not looking at this more deeply?
Well, the first thing I want to mention is that apparently they're the same height, which I don't think so. But they're both 6'4". I don't know. Whittaker and Adesanya stood toe to toe, and maybe there was a couple inches between them, but it didn't seem like Adesanya's 6'4" when he's standing next to anybody of note that we know their height. And Jones would have a 4.5 reach advantage if they ever fought, but they're not going to fight. They shouldn't fight. At least I should preface that by saying no, stop it. They don't let him fight. Dana, stop it. I get you're trying to hype, you're trying to make things exciting and trying to make things interesting. Before Adesanya fought Whittaker last week, before that whole thing happened, he said, "Yeah, I kind of think that the Jones Adesanya fight would be fun. It would make some good money." And I'm just thinking, oh, stop. First of all, don't line out fights for a guy, before he fights the next guy. That's crazy. And second of all, there are so many contenders. I am on board with both of your guys' reasoning, Juice and Duffy. There's a wealth of contenders. There's a bunch of young guys. There's some guys that are a win away from a shot. I'm also, as Juice mentioned, I'm also happy Whittaker didn't say, "Oh, I need a rematch," because essentially the way it has been lately is to beat the champ, you have to beat the champ twice, and that should be reserved for Anderson Silva breaking his leg. That should be reserved for very unusual circumstances if they get an immediate rematch. Machida and Shogun, was there an immediate rematch for that for Shogun?
It was.
No, I think
yeah.
Shogun. I thought Shogun have to beat
Shogun
had to.
No,
Shogun
Machida
lost the decision. A really poor decision, and then knocked him out the next time.
I thought that Shogun had to fight somebody else in the meantime. Anyway, the point is that immediate rematches should be very rare, because otherwise that and champion to go up to a new weight class to chase the title is just tearing the company apart in terms of the fights they can make. They are starved for title fights. And then they'll throw 3 on an end of the year card, and everybody goes, "Oh, okay, good luck with that." Look what Conor's lightweight situation did. Not to bring up McGregor again, but Tony Ferguson is on a 12-fight win streak and has not fought for the undisputed title. Now he might next, whatever. And he also screwed up the whole Max Holloway situation. Max Holloway had to fight 10 times, win 10 times to get an interim belt before fighting for the real belt because of the whole "I want to fight for another title" thing. I mean, think about that. For Ferguson's sake, there are only 5 fighters in UFC history that have had longer winning streaks. You know who they are: Silva, Jones, Mighty Mouse, GSP, and Holloway. And what do they all have in common? They're all champions, and they've all been champions for a while. So fight in your division, figure it out, and then go to the next one. Or do what David Branch did. Defend light heavyweight, and this is the World Series of Fighting. He was a middleweight champion, won light heavyweight, went back to defend at middleweight, went back to defend at light heavyweight. If you can do that, okay, but no, don't. Just let it go.
Yeah, as long as a guy like Jared Cannonier is waiting in the wings, I don't want to hear any super fight talk in any other weight classes. Kelvin Gastelum and Darren Till are about to have a fight of serious consequence in that division. That's something to keep your eye on. There are a lot better options than Israel Adesanya ruining himself going up to light heavyweight. Like, think about the or even a Robert Whittaker instant rematch. Think about how that ruined Cody Garbrandt. So things to keep in mind there. Now I'm gonna go off script just a little bit from my outline here, and we're gonna go straight into the speed bag, and that is where I get to flex my authority, and you have to do what I say, and follow these strict guidelines. So I like last week's format where everyone had 10 seconds to answer every question, and I think that's how we're gonna rock with it again. So Ben, my man, please come through. Give me a 15-second answer in 10 seconds for this question. How many wins does Robert Whittaker, Bobby Knuckles, need to string together to fight for the middleweight title again? 10 seconds. Let's do it.
2, not because he isn't deserving, but to give time for Izzy to defend his title twice more before they fight again.
You sure you don't have like 3 more seconds of stuff to say so I can cut you off?
Dead air.
Oh, boo. Okay. All right, Juice, your turn. 10 seconds to tell me what Bobby Knuckles needs to do. How many wins? I'm sorry, he needs to have before he should be fighting for the middleweight title again.
I think I'm gonna bend 2 sounds good, but if he has a really impressive win, if he has like a 2-minute knockout against his next opponent, he could probably.
Oh my goodness! I hate to cut off a guest, but damn it, you forced my hand, Juice. You forced my hand. It did feel kind of good though. So, Jay, you have 10 seconds. Tell me, does the Reaper have a shot at the middleweight title again? How many wins will it take? Let's do it.
I'm with you guys. 2. You gotta have 2. You gotta have that to clean up, to tune up, and get there. You know who should be next for Whittaker? Jack Hermanson.
Oh,
good.
Oh, a lot of information in a very compact 8.6 second package right there. Very, very good work, Jay. Juice, thank you. Thank you so much for letting me flex my authority for just a moment there.
I'm a first timer, so of course it was gonna be me.
Oh no, it's okay. You could do it a second time again, my brother. So you got 10 seconds to answer this, and you being one of the experts in women's mixed martial arts out there. For everybody who is watching right now, yes, check this man out. His insights on women's mixed martial arts are quite indeed very astute. So, Mr. Vargas, please enlighten us. 10 seconds. With Megan Anderson recording a first-round submission over a UFC newcomer, what's next for her and the featherweight division? Let's do it.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God. I don't think I really thought about this one. I'm just going to say Macy Chiasson because I think she should go up, and I don't think she looked good against
Oh, my goodness. I know where you were going, but it was a little over time. It's still an astute observation. Yes, please follow this man on Twitter, Chiefs_MMA. Now, Jay, you've got 10 seconds, my man. What's next for Megan Anderson in the featherweight division after her win Saturday?
You know, if they keep the division, you know what would be good? Pam Sorensen, the Invicta 145-pound champ, if they do that.
Shut up!
Otherwise, there is no division. Give it to Invicta.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Just 1 second over, but that was 1 second of power that I got to flex over you. So thank you, Jay. Ben, it sounds like your answer was already taken, but please.
No.
He was
telling him to shut up.
He was disagreeing.
Because that one of my biggest mad-ons is the UFC constantly butchering Invicta's divisions.
Please. Give us 10 seconds of this wisdom, sir.
This fight was meaningless. The thing that happens when you take an easy win is nobody learns anything about you. I don't know what's next for Megan Anderson. Stop.
Wow. And how dare you take away my authority by telling me to stop the timer?
I have to apologize because my interjection is what pushed Jay over, but I needed to tell him to shut his whore mouth.
No.
Existence.
Ben, I just wanted to comply because I didn't want you to kick my ass. Jay, please, what were you saying?
I think, well, no, I mean, it merits a little more discussion if there are 4 fighters in the division. And the name that they wanted is gone. You know, the Cyborg is now in Bellator. There are 4 women. If they could pillage from Invicta, then that stinks for Invicta. But otherwise, the free agent market isn't there either. So Duffy might have nailed it on the head. Is it just completely meaningless? And is it just, we have Megan Anderson, so Bellator doesn't? Is that what it boils down to? We want to hold on to Megan Anderson. We're going to give her like the fight version of an ashcan copy to keep the rights of her for longer. What's the point?
Yeah, this is the equivalent of Fox making that Fantastic Four movie that never came out just to keep the rights. Yeah. That's what that is.
And I'll ask this question, and I know that at the very least Jay and Juice will nod. What the hell is Jessie Mealy doing still fighting in CFFC or wherever she is? She might be the third best 145-pound woman in the world.
And no one knows who she is, and that's because of the competition she's facing. That's such a shame.
This is going to be bad coming from me, but I didn't even know who she was. So, yeah, it goes to show how much I follow women's featherweight because, I wish I knew that one too. But I will definitely look her up now.
She's got pink hair. You can't miss her. Well, she had pink hair. Does she still? I don't know.
A lot of pink hair out there in the world. Well, I was about to go somewhere. I know.
Oh, hey.
I know some people know what I was about to talk about, but I can't on this show. What are you saying there, Jay?
Duffy. She's in Bellator now.
Mealy got signed?
Just got signed. She's fighting in 3 weeks.
Against who?
Talita Nogueira. Good luck with that.
Oh.
That's a top 10. It's immediate top 10.
Good girl.
Well, that'll be a good test.
Well, because Talita Nogueira just fought Julia Budd and got beaten up pretty badly. That was the last thing. So that's a bounce back, but that's good. It's funny that that's a top 10 fight because the division is what it is. But at the same time, okay, sign me up. Anyway, okay, back to regularly scheduled programming.
Oh my goodness gracious!
We went way over on the women's talk.
Yeah, the authority has been stripped from my arms, and I don't like it. So therefore, I'm going to take control here. So the final question on the speed bag. I'll start with you on this one, Ben. Actually, no, Jay, you first because you're the only one who didn't go first yet. All right.
Okay.
So Jay, now it's been a year since McGregor last fought in the octagon, the anniversary of UFC 229, which is like 2 days ago, I believe it was. So do you think he should be removed from the rankings? You got 10 seconds.
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, he's retired until he steps foot in the octagon again.
All right. Succinct and to the point. Now, Ben, what's your take? You got 10 seconds. Should McGregor be removed from the rankings?
Yeah, I'm with Jay on this one. He should be removed from the rankings, not just because he's been gone for a year, but because there's no indication he'll be back anytime soon.
All right.
Charged with assault.
Yep. And how about you, Juice? Should he be removed from the rankings? 10 seconds.
Absolutely. I thought the golden rule was you have to be active and you can't test positive for stuff. So yes, definitely.
All right, good. All right, so now this is everybody.
His whole life is a positive test for cocaine.
I didn't even mean it in that way. I didn't even mean it in that way, but good observation.
He's going to be testing for prison hooch if he keeps punching old men. All right, so now let's go ahead and go through the speed bag. I'm going to give myself 30 seconds to answer all three questions. And Robert Whittaker needs probably 2, maybe 3 wins. I don't think the UFC is too anxious to put him back in front of the belt. After all, he only defended once, and that was the Israel Adesanya fight. Megan Anderson's win doesn't really matter much. I don't think featherweight's long for the UFC, and only would be there to spike Bellator. That's the only purpose of it. And Conor McGregor no longer exists. He only exists when he signs a bout agreement. Until then, we're done. And 26 seconds answering all of them. I am the man. Yes, sing praises to me. So now time for the segment so beautifully titled by our own Jay Petrie. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. I want you guys to tell me what about the fights over the weekend surprised you the most. We did have a lot of fights. We had UFC 243. We had Bellator 229. We had Invicta FC 37. We had Triple G fighting as well. But anything related to the pre-fight coverage, the post-fight coverage, or the fights themselves, I'll start with you, Juice.
Does it have to be just one thing, or can we name a few?
Just give me one.
Okay. All right, I was going to say the Invicta main event, but I'll go with Joe Ward, because if you guys have not seen what happened on the DAZN Triple G card, you really have to go and look at it. If you guys have DAZN, go and look, just look at the Joe Ward fight and go to about 1 minute of the second round, and you'll have a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, that was something special right there. Now, I see what you did, Juice, because I was like, just name one, but you try to sneak another one in there. I see what you did there, Play. I see you. All right, Jay, tell me, man, what surprised you, Mr. Falcons?
Well, first of all, I'm just a guy repping a Hawaiian shirt, so let's take that all with a grain of salt. Robert Whittaker surprised me the most because his approach to fighting was it seemed different than I remember. It's been a while, but I've rewatched much of his fights. Now, Israel Adesanya had about a 6.5 inch reach advantage over him. But his approach to fighting Adesanya was almost exclusively lunging in at him. Wide, long shots, hoping to catch him on the big. You reach in and you try and go for a big right, and Adesanya saw it coming repeatedly. It was surprising to me because of how predictable it seemed, even from a comfortable chair riding up the play-by-play. It seemed like, well, is this all he has? Is this his game plan? Now, again, I don't know what goes into it or what's going on, what is happening like that, but he seemed to me like a fighter that hasn't fought in 16 months. He threw all power everything he had into every shot, and it was just whiff after whiff after whiff. I was very surprised the strike totals were as close as they were. Adesanya was 40 to Whittaker's 32, so it was closer than I thought. But as soon as Adesanya dropped him with 1 second left in the first round, I knew that's it. That's all she wrote. It's just a matter of time. He has seen it coming. He saw the approach. He saw the tactics. Whittaker's trying to close the distance the way he is repeatedly and predictably, and he countered it with that short right hand and then took one, leaned back, and hit with that left. I was so surprised by that. It just seemed off to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm okay with it.
No. You were with me on that one, man. I was very surprised that was the approach, and then especially after he got dropped at the end of the first round, that he went right back to the exact same entry. So, yeah. Ben, what surprised you, Mr. Falcons?
I was surprised by Tai Tuivasa versus Serghei Spivac. To put this into perspective, all 20 individual pickers from the Sherdog Pick'em League picked Tai Tuivasa, and just so that you know, out of the 240 or so fights that the league has picked this year, like there have been maybe 6 or 7 unanimous picks the whole time. And not only that, like all 20 individual pickers went with Tuivasa, and the Hive Mind, which is a composite picker made up of the admins and moderators from the Sherdog forums, also unanimously went with Tuivasa, which is even rarer because those dudes love to make off-the-wall calls, knowing that they're just one vote out of 11. So it was unanimous. And I flatter myself that I put more thought and probably tape time into this fight than most other people did. And I was sure that Tai Tuivasa was going to beat this guy. I mean, Spivac came into the UFC 9-0, all 9 wins by finish, but you could not get a more paper record than this guy had. His first 6 fights were all in Eastern Europe and the former Russian republics. His last 3 fights, the 3 fights that vaulted him into UFC greatness, were a win over Travis Fulton, a win over Ivo Kuk, who is a Croatian guy who is like, he's a 500 fighter in Croatia, and Tony Lopez, who, with all due respect, because Tony Lopez is pretty awesome, but he's been king of the cage for like 18 years now. Like, if those are the 3 fights that catapulted you to, like, tell me a Moldovan featherweight would have made it to the UFC on the back of that record. It is the most heavyweight thing ever. He's an undersized heavyweight, coming in kind of like Nikita Krylov. Undefeated record, making fools look stupid over in Eastern Europe, but really kind of a pudgy 230-pound heavyweight. And he came into the UFC, he got completely destroyed by Walt Harris. Like, completely destroyed by Walt Harris. So when he came into the Tuivasa fight, I was like, Tuivasa's got this. And the thing is, I know what Tai Tuivasa's ceiling is. I mean, he is an athlete who hits pretty hard, but hasn't really put any of the skills of MMA together. In fact, fellow Sherdog contributor Patrick Auger and I guested on Blaine Henry's podcast last night, and one of the questions was, does Tai Tuivasa train? And we had like a 5-minute conversation and a bit of a discussion and argument about it. That's all you need to say. And I mean, because he admitted he had never done weight training until this camp. And I thought of it as it's probably kind of like the Derek Lewis thing, where locally it's kind of known that, he trains 4 times a week for 45 minutes. Because at heavyweight, if you have one good skill, you're a good athlete and you have the ability to apply pressure, you can make to the UFC on that. So, having said that, I knew what Tai Tuivasa's ceiling was. I knew he was ripe to get beaten again sometime soon. I did not think Serghei Spivac was the guy to do it, and he absolutely did it, and he did it just excellent game planning. He played to his strengths. He played to Tuivasa's weaknesses. He had to know on some level that if I can make it to the end of the first round without getting my bell rung badly, this shit is mine. And sure enough, it was. Tuivasa's gas tank betrayed him. Tuivasa, he's a huge dude and he swings hard, but he doesn't hit that hard by heavyweight standards. I know he's a Mark Hunt disciple, but he is not the one, like, just counter right and walk away type hitter. So go you, Serghei Spivac. He put Tuivasa on the ground. He made him tired. He made him quit. And now I have to rethink everything in my life.
What surprised me the most about that fight in particular was the fact that Tuivasa was so adept at first of getting off of his back, but so poor at defending the takedown in the first place. And that's pretty rare that you see that combination of skill with lack of skill.
You know what it reminded me of? A heavyweight Alex Oliveira powering out of positions. He'd get taken down, but he'd get back up until he ran out of gas.
Get dead tired,
Yeah, makes a lot of sense there. So I'm not surprised Mr. Falcon's moment came courtesy of Gennady Golovkin. I wanted to go with the Tai Tuivasa Serghei Spivac, but Ben so eloquently put that one down that I really can't add anything else to it. So Triple G, I think Triple G is officially looking old in the ring. He had all he could handle with Serghei-Derevyanchenko. Ended up getting the decision, however controversial it may be. I would have to rewatch that fight and focus my sole attention on it in order to score it fairly. But it was a very close fight. And what I found most troubling, Triple G backing down where he normally would be pressing forward. He was repeatedly on the back foot. He was throwing a lot of single shots, not a whole lot of focus on combinations. It looked like a guy who was having trouble pulling the trigger, and that is the first sign that things are about to fall off the rails. So anybody getting their hopes up for an epic trilogy match with Canelo Alvarez, hard pass on that. I think that ship has sailed. All right. Now we're going to move on to something that you brought up a little bit earlier, Ben. Michael Bisping revealed last week that he has been wearing and competing with a prosthetic eye. Now, I don't know, you guys have heard things too because we all kind of run in the same circles, but I did know quite some time ago that Michael Bisping's story about the oil holding his eye together and all that was kind of bullshit. I heard through the grapevine that was bullshit and that he was completely blind in that eye. That was what I found out. What I did not know that it was a prosthetic eye. Therefore, he damn sure couldn't see out of it. Juice, I'll start with you, man. What was your initial reaction upon hearing that?
What a man. I mean, a stupid man. A goddamn fool of a man, but oh my god, that dude's got some balls, man. I just, it makes no sense. I mean, I'm sure you were there too, and I don't know if you were covering or not, but I was there for 199 when he knocked out Luke Rockhold. Yep. And of course nobody saw that coming. And it's just, pun not intended, but yeah, that was amazing, and that wasn't even when he lost it. I mean, had it been like, oh well, he lost it prior to that fight, that's amazing, but he lost it what, 2, 3, maybe 4 fights before that. So it wasn't just that he won a title with one eye, that he defended it, that he continued his career after that he actually had a run up and actually earned the shot to that title. Mm-hmm. And actually, yeah, he actually got it done. Yeah, I don't know. The thing I just kept thinking of, and we were talking about, how shitty some commissions can be, but how can the commission allow that? That's all I kept thinking. Now I just, for the past couple of days, I was thinking like, what? I know that people made a big thing of Amanda Nunes when she pulled out against Shevchenko for her sinusitis, which I gave her a break for right away because I know what a warrior Amanda Nunes is, and I know that'd be a bitch to fight with. But I started seeing women saying that, yeah, they've been cleared with, I heard women say that sometimes they've been cleared while pregnant. I mean, like, shit happens, but
mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, the whole thing is you can have a broken arm, broken ribs, the most terrible injuries. But as soon as you get just a little blood in your eye, the doctor's gonna stop it because that's you know the zero
Gone too
tolerance.
far at that point.
Yeah,
Gone way too far.
Mm-mm.
but you can compete without one eye. Like, and this is the thing is like, okay, he cannot fill it out on the forms or whatever. But even in the most, you can go to a mobile hospital in some just trailer in the middle of a parking lot somewhere, and even that doctor will put a flashlight in your eyes to make sure your brain is working. How now you put a flashlight in Michael Bisping's prosthetic eye, that shit is not dilating. So that's what I just kept wondering. I'm like, they have to know. There's no way the commission and the doctors did not know about this, and I'm just baffled. I don't know what to say about it aside from the dude's a warrior, and he's got more balls than brains for sure.
That
Now,
is
yeah.
that is the most Southern California Latino soundbite we've ever been served up on this show.
And I'm proud to be the one to do it.
I've gotta say this too, man, because the idea of like the commission putting a flashlight in his eye to check to see concussion symptoms and all that good stuff. Like, we're watching on TV and we knew something was up. Okay? Like, we're on TV watching this. Like, we've been thousands of miles away from wherever Michael Bisping was competing and could see, gee, one of those eyes ain't really doing what it's supposed to do right now. And some hapless fool with the commission badge is standing in front of him saying, "Yep, you're good to go, Mr. Bisping." Yeah, that's government bureaucracy for you. So Ben, at the expense of your lovely Bisping imitation and the and what you had prepared for the buried treasure segment, I think it's a good time to mention Joe Schilling and what he endured.
Bag Joe Schilling. I know we have a time limit here, so let me just kind of weigh in on the Bisping thing, because I mean, you guys as my friends, and you, Juice, that you've had me on your show, and you brought me on your show, with the warning that, like, hey, we talk a lot of shit on this show, and found that your concerns were unfounded. I mean, I'm generally just a fount of kind of one-liners and anecdotes here, and nothing is too ill to joke about. But when something like this comes up, it is a very sobering thing to me, because it reminds me that what we're watching for entertainment is the equivalent of a bonfire that is running on bodies. Like, if you enjoy this sport, if you enjoy combat sports of any kind, you have to reconcile or ignore that you're watching entertainment that is built on other people sacrificing their health, their current health, and their future health. I mean, the retirement health of retired fighters is, a tragedy that is only going to get worse as we go forward. So if you're watching MMA or boxing or kickboxing or any of these sports, you know that's what you're doing. But when this revelation came out from Bisping, my first thought was to say, holy shit, like, what a complete animal, like, what a warrior, like, what a man to, after this injury happened, go back to the grindstone and give us one of the most memorable moments in combat sports history, the night he knocked out Rockhold to win the championship. But at the same time, I have to think, okay, what if, God forbid, in one of those fights, he'd suffered a severe injury to the other eye and then had to come out and tell us, hey guys, I never told you this, but actually now I'm blind in both eyes and I'm essentially disabled for the rest of my life. There would be a huge wave of people saying, oh my God, you idiot, you asshole, why did you do this? You're such a moron. And I would have hated the people who said that. And because of that, it tempers my praise for what he did do. I have to always think about the what if. I think about the counterfactual, because if you don't, then you're just coasting through life on sheer luck and happenstance, and I'm not comfortable doing that. So I enjoyed the moment he gave us, but it bums me out to know that he did it.
Mm. All right, definitely good points there by you, Ben. Jay, anything you want to add to
Just
this?
just something to think about. This dude got his eye gouged out essentially during the Vitor Belfort fight. And that was in, I don't know, 2013. This guy went on to fight 11 times and win the middleweight belt with one eye. You can spin that however you want. It's amazing. It's the guts on him. First of all, throw away the BMF title. Give it to Bisping. Give him the eternal BMF champion. Forget Diaz and Masvidal. That's garbage. I can't even fathom the thought of, okay, let me go through 4 fights that Bisping had in his run that was pretty spectacular. He fought, I don't know, Anderson Silva in London, had a crazy battle with him, got knocked out in the process, survived it, won a very contentious decision fight of the night. Okay. Goes on to fight for the title against Luke Rockhold, one of the consensus top 10 great middleweights there is. Knocked him out in the first round. Fought his nemesis, big name, but aging star Dan Henderson. Went 5 hard rounds with that dude, got hit hard multiple times, and won, came out on top, and then fought George St. Pierre. Anderson Silva, Luke Rockhold, Dan Henderson, and GSP, if you line up 4 names that another fighter has fought that are tougher on paper than that, I can only think of maybe Shogun and Pride during when he went through the tournament. It's incredible that run he did, and he did it all only seeing this part of his anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how anybody let him fight ever.
Yeah, I want you to walk to your local 7-Eleven with like this and see how difficult it is. Then imagine a trained killer throwing punches at you. And keep in mind, too, the finishing sequence that led to him losing his title to George St. Pierre was set up by a hook on his blind side. So that's something to consider. Like, Yuki Nakai is a guy we don't talk about enough in MMA who was blinded by Gerard Gordeau. And Vale Tudo, Japan in like 95, I believe it was. He fought that night 2 more times, beat Craig Pittman, and then lost to Kron Gracie in the finals of that tournament. Courageous performance, incredible what he was able to accomplish. Bisping accomplished that time and time again over an entire back half of his career. So that's something to keep in mind there. But Ben brought up a fair point saying, hey, we're starting to run over time, so we got to move things along a little bit here. So therefore, I'm going to go ahead and take a little creative license, and I'm going to combine a segment here because we have a lot of fights going on this weekend. And instead of us just focusing on the fight that stands out the most to us on the UFC card in Tampa, let's open it up all together because we've got Bellator going on. We've got PFL playoffs starting. We've got Rizin. We've got one championship having 2 events, Century 1 and 2, I think from Tokyo. So out of all these fights going on, what are some of the matchups that you are most looking forward to? What stands out to you gentlemen on this card, on these cards? And Jay, I see the enthusiastic grin on your face, so I want to start with you.
You probably know what I'm going to say. You guys, at least 2 of you will probably know what I'm going to say because of all the main events on these 6 events. 6 events this weekend. Holy smokes. There's one that stands out to me that a man can answer a question about his legacy that he brought up 13 or 14 years ago when he finished Frank Mir in the UFC. So Brandon Vera is the current One Championship heavyweight champion, is dropping down to cruiserweight is what they call it, or it's their light heavyweight division at 225 to fight Aung Lang Sung, the Myanmar hero, and has the chance to become a 2-division champion. Now, famously, Brandon Vera, after finishing Frank Mir, said he doesn't necessarily want 1 title. He wants to get 2 belts. He wants to take the heavyweight title and then go down and take the light heavyweight, and everybody laughed when he started losing repeatedly to Tim Sylvia and so on and so forth. 13 years later, he can do it. He can actually do it. You know what? Good for him. I suppose. It'll be fun, and that is, excitingly enough, the most interesting fight on the card for me. I am looking forward to that of the weekend for me, actually.
All right. So Juice, what about you, man?
How many fights are we talking about here?
Oh, it's just
like 74, 76 or something like
something
that.
crazy like that.
Anything that tickles your fancy, huh?
Yep.
Anything this weekend.
All right, so I guess I should just go on brand and just go with women's MMA. There's more than enough fights on here. The one thing I have not seen is one, so I'm sure there's some. They always have women's MMA fights there. I'm sure there's something I'm missing there. But the ones I'm gonna go with is Sohee Ham. She's fighting. I don't know the girl she's fighting too much, but I'm a gigantic Hamdulillah fan, so I'm interested to see what she'll do. Mackenzie Dern, and this is more for for comical purposes, because I have talked so much shit on that girl, and I just want to see what she looks like coming back after a pregnancy. Just like basically taking her baby out the crib, putting her back down, and like, I gotta go train and somehow come in on weight as strawweight of all fucking things. So I'm definitely interested to see what she's gonna do there. And then a fight that I wasn't aware of until right before we started the show, because I wasn't aware of all the MMA happening this weekend, is Gina Fabian and
Kayla Harrison.
Kayla Harrison, thank you. I do not know how I was forgetting her name. That's also another thing. My co-host Reen and I, we kind of go at Kayla Harrison a little bit, and we really like Gina Fabian. So I think in regards to my show and just personally, I think that's a good fight, and I don't think that's a fight that Kayla's going to win easily either. So I think those are the 3 fights I'm going with.
Oh, definitely some good choices right there. Very good choices. Ben, what are the couple of the matchups that are standing out to you over the weekend?
The Bellator card this weekend is an Italian card, and it is very thin, even by the standards of Bellator Europe cards. And I feel bad just dismissing it that way, but there's nothing on that card that I want to bring up if I'm talking about 3 or 4 fights this weekend. Certainly, I've not been shy about taking a giant steaming dump on one championship and some of the things they've done. But they are pulling out all the stops this coming weekend. Like, they're putting on 2 cards. Both cards are loaded. Like, if you want to see what one championship has to offer you, they are putting it all out on the table for you. Like, their biggest names that haven't fought in the last 4 weeks are on the card in interesting matchups, not complete squash matches in a lot of cases. I mean, Bibiano Fernandez, there was a time when you could have argued that he was the best fighter not in the UFC anywhere in the world. He has a chance to avenge his only loss in 312 fights against Kevin Bellingon. Shinya Aoki is fighting. If you want to see how, kind of honorable and respectful Japanese MMA can be, then watch him break some dude's shit off and flip the bird to the cameras.
Yes. Thank you, Ben, for saying that. Thank you.
Like,
he's fighting a guy named Honorio. Honor is in the other guy's name.
Well,
you gotta break that guy's arm.
I was gonna say, Honor's about to go home with a limb in a bag. Demetrius Johnson is back. He's fighting Danny Kingad. There's a limit to how many legitimate challenges one championship can put in front of arguably the best fighter in the world. Danny Kingad is it. Angela Lee, one of their biggest faces, one of the people that they clearly want to make a star for their 400 trillion fans. She's on the card. So it is a sensational weekend to fight for one championship. If you've never seen a one championship fight, if you've never seen a one championship card, you want to know if there's anything there worth checking out, this is the weekend to check it out. One championship is going to dazzle you. Or if they don't, then you're not a one championship fan. Talking about the UFC card, I say this about a lot of UFC cards, I feel like, where there are a lot of individual fighters I'm interested to see, but not a whole lot of matchups that I'm interested in. This weekend, I am excited to see James Vick versus Nico Price.
Me too.
I am of the opinion that while James Vick is long overdue to move up to welterweight, I saw the dude in July at UFC San Antonio. He is a titanic lightweight. I saw him on the scale, and I could not believe that man was 155 pounds. And he wasn't even 156. He was 155, as if to make a point. It's like, that's a savage weight cut. But nonetheless, he's been overdue to move up to welterweight for a while. But at the same time, I'm of the opinion that moving up in weight is not going to solve all of his problems. And they're throwing him right in against a guy that is a stiff test. Nico Price in almost any other division would be in the top 5 and knocking on the door of title contention. But welterweight is that division where if you string together 5 fights and lose 1, you go to the back of the line. I mean, think of all the guys, Price, Vicente Luque, like these guys that they're not even the talk of like the 4 guys at the top that all hate each other. Like they're still kind of orbiting. And Nico Price is one of those guys. Because of that, he's kind of underrated, or at least not talked about as much as he should be. He's a really good fighter. If James Vick beats him, he catapults himself. Maybe he leapfrogs that whole pack. If Nico Price beats Vick, then maybe he gets to leave that pack and move into that discussion of 4 or 5 guys that might fight next.
All right, definitely some good picks there.
Remember, Nico Price is one of 2 guys that I've ever seen that knocked a guy out while he was on his back with a hammer fist.
Yeah.
Well, knocked out Randy Brown.
It helps that he had Brown's head trapped with his shin. It was one of the weirdest finishes ever.
Yeah, you couldn't replicate that if you tried.
No,
like that was just such a bizarre occurrence there. Definitely good picks all around. So I'll give a few of the matchups that are standing out to me the most. So as far as the UFC card goes, one of the matchups that I'm really looking forward to is Marlon Vera versus Andre Ewell. I think that promises a lot of good action. I see a particularly exciting firefight going on between those. That's probably going to be my sleeper for fight of the night. On the Rizin card, Patricky Pitbull is making an appearance. The former Bellator lightweight champion, he's going to be fighting Tatsuya Kawajiri. And that's it's happening.
That's something.
It's like he's going to Japan to do something. So that's what's up. I think more so than anything, this is highlights the continued partnership between Bellator and Rizin. They did announce today that there's going to be some sort of joint press conference, which is likely to announce a New Year's Eve show that's been heavily rumored with Fedor most likely headlining. So that's something to watch out for. I think as far as the Bellator.
You said Bellator. It's okay. Like if you're gonna say Fedor headlining in 2019, you're allowed to say Bellator next.
Oh man, Freudian slip there, I guess. But not a whole lot to say about the Bellator card. But the PFL playoffs begin this week, and it's the matchup that's really jumping out to me. Besides the fact that Brendan Loughnane is making his PFL debut, and he was just a few months ago the most sympathetic character in the mixed martial arts world with his ill-advised yet strategically sound takedown in the last seconds of his Contender Series fight. Sadu Sai is fighting Ray Cooper III. I like that fight a whole lot. That just screams just beautiful technical violence versus just a smashing machine. That to me is kind of like a poor man's Adesanya versus Costa. It has that same sort of aesthetic. So sign me all the way the fuck up. I'm ready for that. And that is a lot of fights. Also, Fabiano Maldonado is still active, and he's fighting on Rizin as well. So, and on the co-main event, nonetheless, too. So
he's fighting their light heavyweight champion that just got bored and went up to 225 to fight Fabio Maldonado, because that's a thing that guys do these days, I guess.
Yeah. So that is happening as well. So, fellas, I think that is going to wrap things up for this edition of Unleash. And wait, did I forget the buried treasure? Oh, we got to have the buried treasure.
Always treasure at the end.
Yes. So, Ben, we'll start with you. What is your buried treasure for the week?
Well, if you watched Bellator 229 this past weekend, and I hope you did, even though it was like this weird like unbalanced hammerhead card with like 2 prelims and 7 post limbs because Bellator is a complete slave to its broadcast schedule. If you watched it, Joe Schilling fought, and kind of disappointed, I mean, Joe Schilling is a guy who's always, he's lost some fights as a mixed martial artist. He's lost fights as a kickboxer. Like, being undefeated and unbeatable has never been his jam. He's kind of like a mini version of his buddy Donald Cerrone in that way. He's the guy that, is just going to go out and wing shots and throw hands and throw some nasty kicks, and he might get knocked out, he might win, but he looked terrible this weekend. He got embarrassed by Tony Johnson, got knocked out pretty bad, and even before then didn't really look. He looked out of sorts. And it comes out that on Sunday, so just the day after the fights, he revealed a litany of injuries and illnesses that plagued him on his way in. I mean, apparently his right arm, he'd not been able to use at all, like not able to fully extend the arm. Was getting a bunch of anti-inflammatory injections, and he describes them as anti-inflammatory injections. Just let me let you know that the primary injectable anti-inflammatories are all steroids. They're all steroids. Just, okay, so got a bunch of anti-inflammatory, the cortisone shot for your elbow is almost, that's something that goes, it's across all sports. Guys, cortisone's a steroid. His left arm, so his only good arm going into the fight, he apparently broke in the first round on one of his spinning back attacks. So now he's like the Black Knight in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Thank you, Jay, for putting that in my head today on something completely unrelated. Well, you use it in the context of me thrashing you so bad in the fantasy football league, but
you lit me up.
So already the guy has no working arms. He gets knocked the hell out. Oh, and by the way, it turns out he had some sort of stomach bug and was vomiting loudly and audibly in the locker room before the fights, to the point that Johnson's locker room could probably hear him. My whole thing is, what process of inspection or certification did he pass before walking into the cage? Did his pre-fight physical include such penetrating questions as, can you hold both of your arms out?
Well, hey, man, if they can't say, hey, do you have 2 good eyes? Then I don't know.
Yeah, clearly I got into the wrong line of work. I should have gone to medical school, graduated with D- or whatever the fuck, and gone to work for an athletic commission. But that's my buried lead for the week. That Joe Schilling probably should have been buried rather than step into the cage. And none of this is anything against Joe Schilling. I'm glad he made it into the cage. I hope he wasn't hurt too badly. I'm glad he picked up a paycheck for himself and his family. It is not the fighter's job to stop that. It is the coaches, the managers, the regulatory agencies, the promotion. And of all those, the regulatory agency and its associated doctors are the only ones that don't have a financial stake in the fighter walking into the cage. So it really falls on them.
All right. So, Jay, let me know what your buried treasure for the week is.
All right. You thought Duffy's was a downer, was a big bummer? Well, I got one more for you. Okay. So this is news today. So I guess it's buried treasure, but it's also recently announced treasure. I don't know if treasure's the right word for it. Combate Americas, the promotion from Latin America, is putting on a pay-per-view card. And they're doing this on December 7th in Hidalgo, Texas, so it's right at the border. And the main event is our beloved Tito Ortiz, the people's champion, the Huntington Beach bad boy. I don't know what his nickname is anymore. Versus another guy who I don't know who's his nickname. Alberto Del Rio, Alberto El Patron, Alberto Rodriguez, Dos Caras Jr. I don't know what he is. Anyways, the man formerly known as the guy that Crow Cop kicked in the head in Pride wearing a mask. pro wrestler, 9-5 record in MMA, hasn't fought in who knows how long. $40 pay-per-view card. $40. So, I cover Combate Americas along with many other promotions. I don't do Fight Fact statistics because I don't do Fight Fact statistics on that promotion. But I do write up weigh-ins, and I do look at prelim and event reports to go over what happened if I don't see it myself. So I'm familiar with their roster. Apparently, or reportedly, they're putting on another title fight in the card. But I don't know the roster they can put together to sell a $40 pay-per-view card. Now, keep in mind, Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz 3, the fight that should never happen, that Ben Duffy probably remembers, that Ant Walker probably remembers, begrudgingly remembers, did upwards of 40,000 pay-per-view buys. Remember, Tito Ortiz said it did 200,000. It did 30 to 40,000. I can't imagine this doing more than 10,000 if they're doing well. So I don't understand the move to go from Univision and UDN or the other channel they use, and DAZN, which that network deal apparently is not existent anymore, to a $40 pay-per-view card. Are you any of you guys raise your hands if you guys are going to purchase this card?
I won't be doing it.
Yeah, and like we can write it off on an expense report. Probably still won't do it anyway.
I don't think I'd feel good about that.
Like, yeah, that's really bad. That's pretty damn bad. Yeah, this is 2019.
Right,
and
Juice,
we're having this conversation.
Please cheer us up, Juice.
Yeah, please tell us something fun.
Well,
no pressure.
No. Shout out and good job on Jay to cover Combate and to cover my people's promotion. I guess I don't know if I want to claim that, but goddamn, Alberto.
Hey, they're trying. Bless them.
Yeah, I went to one of their shows, but yeah, it was weird seeing Cato Castillo there. I'm just like, man, you put away El Chapo. Like, I'm just standing next to a legend. A lot of people, a lot of, a person that a lot of people consider a legend. But anyway, not from Combate. I guess just like Jay, this is a recently announced treasure. This was maybe 2 hours before we started the show, and I'm pissed off because I was supposed to write about this for this week, and now I got to scramble to find a story. But Oleksandyr Usyk was supposed to fight Tyrone Spong this weekend on DAZN, and that seems to no longer be happening because they had some kind of finding in Tyrone Spong's VADA test. So yeah, that fight's not happening anymore. And I know that this fight was never really meant to be competitive. I just wanted to see what Tyrone Spong would, I just want to see if he could survive, honestly. I mean, he's like, I think 14-0 in boxing, and obviously he's got power. I mean, he does have the puncher's chance, but I think that this could have been a good fight for Usyk, because even though he's not a big name in boxing, there's not a lot of names in that division. I think Spong could have brought over a crossover audience of kickboxing fans and more so MMA fans, because a lot of MMA fans know and like him. But with this hot piss test, I don't know what's gonna happen, and I guess we can all just put a rest of those rumors of glory kickboxers and Tyrone Spong juicing, huh?
Well, I'll give a slight update. It's been recently, as in momentarily, announced to go. He tested positive for clomiphene, which, as many of us know from Brock Lesnar and Jon Jones, is a women's fertility drug.
And Chael Sonnen as well. Yeah.
I'm sure that's what Tyrone Spong needs to take, on days that end in Y. So there it is.
Yeah, he was ovulating apparently, and inconveniently around the time of this fight, I guess. Who knows? Tyrone Spong versus Dylan White. Book it now. My buried treasure this week centers around the UFC event in Tampa. The co-main event features Cub Swanson versus Kron Gracie, and a fight that sounds pretty damn entertaining. Very much so looking forward to that. Cub Swanson says that he has been kicked out of jiu-jitsu schools after this fight was booked. He is because the Gracie name is attached to his opponent. He is having a lot of trouble just finding a jiu-jitsu school to hone his craft in preparation. So I wonder if that's going to have an effect on the fight. Cub Swanson is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he's not known for using it a whole lot in the cage. But if you want to shore up your jiu-jitsu skills, probably should do that before you fight a man by the last name Gracie. So,
like, can I throw in just something real quick here?
mm-hmm.
There are a lot of fighters out there with the name Gracie, and normally people do not run away from their opponents like the plague. There is something to him being Rickson Gracie's only living child who is still competing. Like there's some weight behind that. You know, I mean, there are a lot of Gracies out there teaching and coaching and fighting, you know, and even kind of taking the Gracie name to themselves so that you know that they're a Gracie family member on the mom's side, like naming Gracie, you know, who's like born last name is Stambovsky.
Stambovsky, yeah.
But out of all this constellation and all these muddy waters of Gracie fighters, being Rickson Gracie's like only living son who's competing, you know, rest in peace Rickson, like it still carries some weight. He is a Gracie on a different level than a lot of other people who are kind of towing the last name behind them.
All right. So
and also has the best walkout music. Well, the walkout audio in the game. So be sure when he walks out to fight Cub Swanson, you listen to what's about to happen. If you haven't heard it yet, trust me.
Isn't it just like the random noises or something? Yeah.
It's amazing.
Is it about flat Earth? Does that something to do with flat Earth? I'm not letting that shit go, Kron. I don't care what a legend you are.
Yeah, that should actually be his walkout track. It's just him
Eddie
talking
Bravo
about flat Earth theory.
B.O.B. Get his homie B.O.B. in there.
Yeah, maybe Kawhi Leonard could. No, it's not Kawhi Leonard. It's it wasn't Kawhi. It's Kyrie Irving.
That guy. I still haven't forgiven that dude, man. Try to play it off as a stunt. Get the fuck out of here.
All right, fellas. So that's going to do it for this edition of Unleashed. Now, let's tell the kind people where they can find us and our work. Juice, I'll start with you. Where can people find you?
I just want to say thank you, Ant. Thank you so much for having me on. I had you on my show, and it's cool you returned the favor. They can find me on Twitter at Juice_MMA. They can find my writing at Combat Press. I've been there a month or two now, and I've been pretty up to date on my weekly stuff. It usually gets published Wednesday or Thursday, and the podcast at iFox with Juice on Twitter. That gets published usually Thursday or Friday, so keep an eye out for that. We publish them weekly without fail, so if you guys will follow me, that'd greatly appreciate it.
All right. Jay, where can everyone find you?
On Twitter, I'm at JPetry, JayPettry. I feel like I need to spell it out because of grade school teachers that called me Petrie. You can find me on Sherdog.com under the little features column, the little drop down. There I am on the top with some other gentlemen on this panel with me today. I write fight facts statistics pieces. I will be writing 7 of them this coming weekend. So good luck with that. Yeah. I'll be writing betting odds pieces going into the UFC Tampa. I'll be running the play-by-play during the show. In the MMA world, I'm everywhere you want to be.
All right. And Ben, where can everyone find you?
I will relinquish my mic time to just tell you that if you're watching this podcast, you should listen to the iFox with Juice podcast featuring Juice and his co-host Rizin. They are fantastic. It is amusing, off the cuff, foul mouth, and yet surprisingly insightful on a regular basis. There are a hell of a lot of podcasts out there talking about this sport. There are about 4 that I listen to, and that's one of them.
All right.
Thank you, John.
I second that. Nice. Highly recommend that podcast. Very, very good stuff, Juice. So you can find me on Twitter at AntWalkerMMA. It's probably already written on the screen, so you know what's up. And Good, Bad, and the Ugly, Ask Ant, The Trenches, my usual, coming to Sherdog.com. So stay tuned. And yeah, he's Juice. He's Jay. And he's Ben. I'm Ant. You know what you got to do. You got to stay beautiful. You got to stay positive. And most of all, you've got to train your jiu-jitsu at a school that will accept you. Got to keep your eyes and stay sexy. I will see you when I see you. Peace.